My name's George Green, and I'll be your host for this webinar. Just a few housekeeping things. We will be recording this session, just to let you know, and there is also a chance to ask questions as well. So if you go to the chat box, you can ask those, put your questions in that chat box, and we will aim to answer as many of those questions as possible throughout this session or towards the end of this session as well. Or we'll try and type in some replies directly to you. Today we are joined by a great panel of speakers as well, who will talk and focus on how to build your brand, so build up your work experience and get you job ready for graduate jobs after university, and how we do that at Brunel. So we have loads of different guests with us today. We have John Bainbridge, who is the director of the Professional Development Centre, and he'll be speaking a little bit about the graduate job market and types of jobs on offer and a few other things with you. We also have Mohammed Raham, who is the Deputy Director of Placements and can talk about the benefits of doing a placement opportunity at university and linking that to a good graduate outcomes for students. We also have Sharina Dariani, who will talk about choosing a course that's right for them, their experience studying at Brunel, and how does their course get them ready for work. And also we have Lili Mackintosh, who is an alumni of Brunel University London. So they are now a client experience manager at Barclaycard, and also about to recently launched her own small business called, and sorry if I pronounced this wrong, Decals and Doodles during lockdown. And Lili studied business and management and graduated from Brunel in 2018. Okay, so without further ado, I will pass you over to John Bainbridge, who will start off today's session. What we'll do is we'll have 10-minute talks from each of our panelists, and also opportunities to ask questions. Remember to put those questions in the chat box where possible. So I'll pass you over to John now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here this afternoon, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you today. And although you haven't started university, looking at jobs might seem like a really, really distant thing in the future. But I think if you just have it in the back of the mind, we're going to run through just a few steps to get you thinking about how to get you in that best possible shape to make the most of university and really come out with a huge range of skills and lots of opportunities open to you. So if I could go to our next slide, please. So if we look at the various different reasons we all go to university, and probably some of these, or maybe all of them, will resonate with you as well. There's lots of different reasons why you choose to come to university. So usually the number one thing is you love the subject. You know, you've studied that subject, maybe you're doing A-levels, you're doing a BTEC, you've got some work experience in that subject, and you've decided, you know what, I'd love to study that in more detail. I'd love to work with some good academics that could be, you know, have fantastic kind of reputations in that particular area, and I'd love to take it to the next year. You know, that's the thing, for the next 3 years, you know, I'm really interested in doing a kind of deeper dive into that particular area. Another area that you might be interested in is getting that first taste of independence. So you may be a commuter student. I'll offer a bit more independence compared to the really structured environment in kind of college or school or sixth form. Or you may decide to come join us as on campus and stay on campus itself, and maybe halls of residence, have a shared flat. You get the key to your own flat, you get that own independence, you don't have anyone kind of over your shoulder telling you what to do, and that can be quite liberating to come to university to do that. So that's a really great thing. And also you get to meet a whole range of different people from different backgrounds, different ages, different cultures. And I think one of the great things about Brunel is that we've got a real good mix of students, not only subject areas, but from around the world, our international students, and all sorts of different backgrounds. So you get a chance to meet new people when you're there. And then a couple of other things. Obviously, the qualification you get is really important. The UK is one of the best higher education providers in the world. So if you decide to work abroad, that's a really, really good qualification to have under your belt. Or if you just decide to kind of explore working kind of further afield in the future, that's definitely a kind of a consideration. And of course, the skills you develop. So what happens when you come to university? You're exposed to all sorts of different learning environments. You're exposed to a whole range of different opportunities. So Mo will talk a little bit about placements, and we obviously got a fantastic lineup of our alumni here and various different people that can walk you through some of those kind of skills that they've picked up and how they put those to use in their various different roles. And then finally, money. So why do we go to university? Often we go to university, can we get a better job after we've got that high level qualifications? That's earning potential actually has a big impact in terms of if you go to university. If I could go to the next slide, please. So I thought I'd put up two facts. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't know them, but when it comes to money and salary, on average, a graduate earns about 30% more, so just under a third more when they're aged between 25 and 30. Those students that left school or college without a university qualification as well, didn't decide to go to university. So you have the potential to earn more money. And the second fact is that when you leave university, the UK is really, really unique because if many other countries, if you want to study a particular discipline, you have to study that at university. Now, the majority of kind of graduate opportunities are open to students from any degree discipline. So that means you can come to university, you can choose to study the subject you love. And when you finish university, you've got a huge amount of opportunities open to you. There are obviously some exceptions to that. So to be a doctor, to be an architect, to certain professions, obviously you need to have studied that professional qualification. But outside of that, you know, the range of kind of career choices available to you is really, really broad. So generally what we suggest when you come to university, use that time as a time of discovery to explore all the sorts of different things that you could go on to potentially work after university. Next slide, please. So where could you work? So let's fast forward to sort of 3, 4, 5 years in the future. You've studied at university, you're about in your final year. So if you think of our students now that are in their final year, they've just taken their exams, they handed in their dissertations about 2 or 3 months ago. That's one of the biggest assignments that they'll ever complete, unless they go on to do kind of master's or postgraduate kind of PhD. So where could you work? So I thought rather than look at all the sectors, I've broken it down into the types of organisations that you could potentially work. So we've heard about Lili, that she works full time, but also she's got a business, so almost a side hustle. So this is one of the things that I think Brunel is fantastic for. There's a really good range of support. So actually within the PDC, the area that I look after, we have an entrepreneurship team that helps support and nurture students with an idea, potentially to start a business, but also freelance. So if you've developed some really, really good skills and there's a way to commercialize that, you can kind of make money from that. So for example, if you're an expert at digital marketing, how you could sell those services to clients and actually be self-employed and be your own boss, which is often a real attraction to many of us, to be our own bosses as well, and to really kind of everything we put in, we get out of that particular project. So thinking about what sort of business you can start, you know, is there a niche or is a gap in the market that you could potentially fill? And then if you kind of work in an organisation, so you may work in what we call a small to medium-sized organisation. So that's generally employers that range up to about 250 employees. So they're generally not your huge, large multinational companies. And actually the majority of students, when they finish university, will go to work for these sorts of organisations. Many of those organisations will actually be clients of multinationals. So although you'd work for a smaller organisation, you'll be probably heavily linked to some of the bigger, larger companies. And then finally, working for a kind of much larger organisation. So I've given some examples. You probably can't see some of the logos in that as well. But things like Coca-Cola, some of the really large, big brands, and they're much more structured in how they recruit. So often they recruit almost 6 to 12 months before you're due to start. there's a very structured recruitment process, and there's a specific scheme. So you may have heard of graduate schemes. So maybe you join the organisation for 2 years, you do a rotation every 6 months, so you get exposed to lots of different things, find out where your strengths are, and then get offered a role after that in that particular department. Can I go to the next slide, please? So to touch on those 3 different areas and go a little bit deeper into those. So looking at becoming a freelancer, lots of our students have a whole range of different ideas about what they could potentially do. So you might have an idea to develop a product, you might have an idea to develop a service, you might meet people at university that you've come up with a joint idea together. And that could be through a project you do at university, or just by kind of your general kind of exposure to various different things. And as I mentioned, the entrepreneurship team's on hand to provide support. And there's 2 ways that they really do that. One is that they offer one-to-one advice. So you can go and sit down with someone. And the people that work in the team, actually both of them work externally for private organisations and have been involved in setting up their own businesses. So you speak to people that have got that level of experience. And I suppose secondly, we organise a whole range of different events. We organise workshops. There's also funding competitions. So we had a competition about 2 months ago where there's £10,000 available, and then we have a first prize winner and 2 runners-up. So that kind of funding to help kind of kickstart those kind of business ideas. And I've just put in 2 examples of students from Brunel. So one is one of our graduates called Lauren Bell, and she's developed a product to help relieve the kind of itching sensation you get if you suffer from eczema. And she's got one of the dragon's dens on board. So she's really one of our kind of, if you like, superstars. And she's about to kind of launch, and her products will be in shops, things like John Lewis, those sorts of shops. So really, really exciting physical products. And then we've had 2 of our students, Pav and Joanna, in the bottom right-hand corner, have developed a kind of a portable washing machine that uses recycled water from your shower and kind of washes clothes in kind of super quick time. And they just won a European competition, the Red Bull Garage competition. So they've beat off about 4,000 other people. Now, it might not be this huge, big design, but it might be a service or an app or something like that. But there's a really good calibre and excellent support within the university to support your kind of ideas around business. And if I could go to the next slide, please. So going back to, if you work for an organisation, you could work for, we call them SMEs, smaller organisations. Just to give you an indication of the total UK population, there's a lot of people working in smaller organisations, so 16 million people, and they bring in £2 trillion a year. So a massive part of the economy, a massive part of the jobs market as well. And as I said, the majority of graduates will go on to work in those particular areas. There's lots of benefits to work for a small organisation, and I've put a couple of those on there. You get to work really closely because you're really close to the owners of the business. You're likely to get promoted more quickly, and lots of ideas and initiatives start to move a little bit quicker as well. Next slide, please. And then finally, large organisations. So I've mentioned some of those. A lot of our graduates do go on to work for larger organisations as well. And we've mentioned a bit about the graduate training programs, but we've had graduates go on to work for PwC, GSK. We've got a large engineering department, as you know, so that's graduate Jaguar Land Rover. So students work there really close to Heathrow. So British Airways is employed a good number of Brunel students as well. Next slide, please. And then I suppose a bit of advice as well. So when you join university, if it's Brunel or any university, there's 2 really things to kind of keep in mind, is that university split into really a 50-50. So 50% is your degree qualification. It's really important to work hard and get your qualification, attend your lessons, and really that's the key purpose of going to university. But the graduates that we see do really, really well when they finish university are those that have done all those extra things and really dived in to the university experience. So they might have become a class rep, do all these sorts of different things. And that gives you all those kind of well-rounded skills, so that people that we'd love to employ in our teams when, after you've kind of finished university. Next slide, please. So building on that, I would suggest do embrace university life, and I've listed a couple of things on here, and it's very personal when you come to university. You do things you want to do, and it's your complete personal choice, and doing things that line up with who you are, the things you love. You want to have fun as well, but underneath that, look at the skills you're developing. So if you joined a club, if you're into sport, drama, music, join a club, a society, and if there's not one that covers what you like, set it up yourself. And the Students' Union can help you do that. Volunteer. So a lot of our students do a whole range of volunteering. We've got some really good provision within the university to support volunteering opportunities. Great way to meet new people, add something back to society and the community. And if you've got a part-time job, great, you get a huge amount of skills from part-time work, and obviously you earn money because universities can be quite expensive. And then other things you can get involved with. So if you've got kind of aspirations to be have a kind of a voice and represent different organisations, you can become a class rep, and then you can represent them at formal kind of university committees and meetings. So really good experience. And then next slide, please. And then finally, some of the other things that we do just within Brunel here. So there's other things you can get involved with. So you can study overseas as part of your course. Many courses offer that option. Great way to kind of expose yourself to different cultures and a real adventure to operate in and actually live in another country rather than just go on holiday. And we've got a number of really interesting programs. So I've just put a couple on here. So we've got what's called the Ready program. And that's open to all first year undergraduate and postgraduate students. And you take part in this extracurricular activity. It lasts 10 weeks. You'll set a brief at the beginning of those 10 weeks to come up with a service or product that will help refugees in a refugee camp in Zambia. You work in teams of 5 of people you've never met before that come from different subjects. And at the end, there's a Dragon's Den style competition panel, and you present your ideas back. So hugely interesting, really, really rewarding to take part in. And then also we have a very similar program, but with Chelsea. So we've teamed up with Chelsea Football Club Foundation, which is the charitable arm of Chelsea Football Club. And they set a live brief, something to do with football, often to do with fan engagement, social media and marketing. And again, they set a live brief. You go off and work in multidisciplinary teams. And at the end, you get to present back to Chelsea, and we do have prizes available. So, for example, Chelsea, whether you like Chelsea or not, they offered a VIP tour of Stamford Bridge. So that appealed to some people as well. Lots of other things. I'm mindful of time and really happy to kind of take questions as and when they come in as well. But that's a very short kind of walkthrough of just some of the things that you can do when you start university to get you in that best possible position to kind of progress onto a great job when you finish. That's all for me. I think I'll hand it back to Mo now, or George.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, thank you very much, John, for covering quite a range of things there. And I think you've really captured the entrepreneurial spirit and the investment in skills for our students to get some really fantastic jobs at a diverse amount of employers as well. So thank you very much for that. Now we're going to pass on to Mohammed, who is the Deputy Director of Placements and can talk you through all that sort of stuff as well. So Mohammed, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks, George. I'm hoping you all can see me. I seem to be having some issues with my camera, but I'm hoping everyone can see me. So hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're enjoying this lovely weather that we're having. Hope you're enjoying it safely, rather. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come and listen to us and talk to and hear about what Brunel has to offer. So as George mentioned, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about placements. I know John and I, we're always a bit concerned when we do talks to students such as yourselves, because you barely come into university and we're talking about you guys leaving university. So it's always a little bit odd. I have a lot of students who tell me, Jesus, I've not even come in and you're already talking about leaving. But it's important to start thinking about these things, start planning these things as early as possible, and the earlier you plan it out, the better it is for yourself. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about placements, how it works at Brunel, the reasons you should really be looking at placements, whether you come to Brunel or not. I think it's a really, really important thing to look at, and if you have the opportunity to take it up. So if we could move on to the first slide, please. So a lot of people always say, well, a lot of people are a bit reticent towards placements because they say, well, it's an extra year. So how it works at Brunel is you do in most cases, you will have the thick sandwich option, which is basically you do your first 2 years at Brunel University. And before you go directly into your final year, you take a year out where you go into industry and do a placement. A lot of people say, well, you're adding an extra year to my degree. But hopefully when we go on to the next slide, it'll make it clear why I'm suggesting such a thing. But I just thought I'd put up my top 5 reasons why I think people have the opportunity, you should do a placement. So number one is it's not in any sort of order, so to speak, but the first point I'd say is gain some relevant experience. Gone are the days now where you can just graduate from university with a 2-1 or a first and you have a job offer waiting for you. It's really important to gain relevant experience whilst at university, gain relevant experience when you are applying for graduate jobs. One of the things I always have a lot of students asking me is, Mo, I've undertaken, I've just graduated from university, and a lot of the jobs I'm seeing advertised are asking for 6 months worth of experience or 1 year worth of experience. How am I supposed to get that? Brunel has built the placement in to help you get that relevant experience, help you develop those skills that you would need that will help you get these graduate level jobs. And you'll hear me refer to graduate level jobs a lot. And when I refer to graduate level jobs, what I mean is jobs related to your course. And one of the things we found is students that who do a placement get jobs related to their course a lot sooner than students who haven't taken the placement pathway. Because you're paying the university all this money, you want a job that's relevant to your course or whatever that might be. A lot of students who come into university, their plan isn't to, not that this is a bad thing, but their plan isn't to stack shelter Tesco's. That's a part-time job you might already be doing at the moment. The reason to come to university is to, and this is the question again I always ask students, is what is the reason you've come to university? To hopefully get a good graduate job after you finish. And one of the ways to do that really, really easily, really quickly is to undertake a placement because it helps you gain that relevant experience. It also helps you improve your skills and your grades. A lot of students who undertake a placement tend to get a degree classification higher than they were originally predicted for. So if you're on course for a 2-1, it moves you up to a first. If you're on course for a 2-2, it moves you up for a 2-1. A lot of people say, well, how is that possible? Not that we just hand out good grades for students who've done placements, but it makes you a little bit more organized with it. One of the skills that students say they've gained a lot when they come back from placements is it's their organizational and time management skills. So students always, when I come into the office, I always see students in the library at about 8:30 already in the library looking at the books, and these students who've been out on placements. And I say, Jesus, you're already in the library and I've not even come into the office. And they're like, well, used to getting up early, used to going into work for a 9-to-5 day. So kind of just got into that mode. So I'm here in the library early. So it really improves your skills. And when you go on placement, you're probably working on 2, 3, maybe sometimes 4 different projects at the same time. And when you go from that to then come back to your final year and you have to work on your one final year project, it makes things a lot easier. It makes things a lot straightforward. And you're able to relate what you've done on your placement back to your theory. So it's not like, you've read your theory and sometimes you're wondering, well, what are they talking about? You're actually putting that into practice in your placement, and then you can bring that back and write a lot more about it when you come into your final year. The main reason, my number one reason, in case you wanted to know what my number one reason was, but my number one reason why I think you should do a placement is the third reason here, the gain insight into the sector. Just to give you a bit of an example, I did a placement, didn't like it. Not that the placement was bad, but the career, the job I undertook didn't really enjoy that job. It was an auditing job. Not that auditing is bad, it just wasn't for me. And I initially was like, well, I've taken the placement, I'm wasting my time, I'm not doing well, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. But it was only until I finished my placement that I realized that actually it's given me an idea as to what I want to do, what I don't want to do. I thought I wanted to do auditing because that's something I did really well at university, but actually that's not for me. And I found out a lot more about myself. So it gives you an insight into the career. Now, the experience I had is is more an anomaly than what everyone else has. The majority of students go out on placement, enjoy their placements, gain the insight into the sector, and then you've got your experience ready after you graduate. But at the same time, if you might think you want to do something now, and when you actually try it for the first time, you might go, actually, I like this, this, and this, but I don't like this and this. So it gives you an idea, it helps you gain an insight into the sector. Like a few years ago, I had a student who said she wanted to be a teacher. So we got her a teaching placement. And when she actually went out and did the teaching placement, she was like, I liked it, but I don't think that was the right career for me. I think I'm looking at something different. So that saved her from, signing up for a PGCE course after she graduated, going into that teaching career, spending extra money to gain the qualifications needed. She was actually able to go, well, let me look at some other career now. I like this bit about teaching, but I didn't like this bit. So let's look at another career. So it helps you gain a really good insight into the sector. So it gives you an idea to try the job out before you actually go and do the job. And if you've done well on your placement, it'll help you secure a suitable graduate job. And I like the word there, suitable, because what I mean by that is, again, you might do a job, you might think it's really good, it's really for you, but you will also, when you're on placement, you'll get to shadow other departments, you'll get to see what other departments do. You might find out about industries and jobs you probably never heard of, never knew existed. A few years ago, I had a student who undertook a marketing placement at John Lewis, really enjoyed the placement, said it was great, but she said, I actually got to shadow the purchasing team. I didn't even know such a job existed, a purchasing job. I didn't know that that's something people could do. And that's actually what I wanted to do. So I said, well, let's find out what it is that you need to get a purchasing job. And let's focus on those skills when you're in your final year so you can help get a purchasing job after you graduate. She's now, I think, working for Danone as one of their lead purchasers. And finally, it helps you network with individuals in the sector. It helps you build contacts with people, helps you learn from different people, helps you build your contact network. Again, even if the job isn't the right job, even if it isn't exactly the job you want to do after you graduate, it helps you meet people, speak to people, build up your network. And one of the things I always say is it is what you know, but it isn't just what you know in the industry. It's also who you know. And making those, building those relationships, building your network is a really, really important part. Just a quick example on that, I had a student a few years ago who wanted to do games design or games development, didn't get a job doing games development, but got a job for a gaming company doing IT support. And he was like, oh, this isn't really what I thought, I want to do games development. But I said, well, just go see what, it'll help you develop some of the skills. And as he was there, he got to meet the games development manager. He built up a relationship with them, and the manager said, well, we might not have something, but I know a friend who works for another games design company who might be able to give you something. And now he's working for Sega. So that's the way you kind of build up your network. So the placement isn't, this is one thing I would say, don't think of the placement as the job for the rest of your life. The placement isn't the job for the rest of your life. The placement is the job that will help you develop the skills, help you get the job that you want, help you get the career you want to get after you graduate from university. So those are some of my reasons. There's other reasons. I know one really good reason is to earn a bit of money as well while they're on placement. That is, the majority of placements that we advertise will be paid. So there's this myth going around that, it's a bit of free work. The majority of placements is paid depending on the sector you're in, depends on how high or low that figure goes, but the majority of placements that we advertise will be paid placements. So that's another reason why the monetary reason is obviously very important as well. But I should have put it on, but I thought against it on this occasion. So if we could go to the next slide, please. And here's some of the advantages about doing the placement. If the other slide wasn't clear, then this slide should make it a little bit more clear. So we found, every year, I think, or every 15 months, I might be wrong, John might correct me on this, after students graduate from university, we contact all our graduates to find out what they're doing, what they're up to, and then we kind of look at the data and see what a placement student's done compared to a student who hasn't done a placement, along with other things that we look at, but that's one of the things we look at. And we found that students who do a placement tend to have better graduate outcomes than students who don't. So what I mean by graduate outcomes is what I meant by getting that graduate level employment. That's what you're looking for, doing a job that's relevant to your course. We've also found students who've done a placement and graduate earn a higher salary than students who haven't done a placement when they graduate. I think the difference is about £4,000, if I'm not mistaken. Again, John will probably correct me on that if I'm wrong, but it's roughly around £4,000, the difference. So again, you might think you're adding an extra year to your course. You're actually not. You're getting ahead of a lot of people who haven't done the placement. And another reason I'd say, even if you're not thinking, well, I don't really want to do the placement, I'd still go through the process, because a lot of the graduate level recruitment processes are very similar. A lot of the placement recruitment processes are very similar to the graduate recruitment process. So if you're wondering, well, what is an assessment center? What's a psychometric test? What's a video interview? What's all these things you're talking about? It gives you a chance to practice it in a sort of risk-free environment before you go into graduate employment. And finally, we found students who undertake a placement tend to be in work, or a combination of work and further study, when compared to students who haven't done a placement. So again, this is the analogy I like to make. I'm hoping there's a few gamers in the audience here, but this is the analogy I like to make. I'm not saying if you do a placement, that's it, everything's hunky-dory, and if you don't do a placement, things are going to be ruined for you. What I say, the analogy I like to make is, it's like playing Mario Kart with the boost on or with the boost off. Doing a placement is like playing Mario Kart with the boost on. Makes things a lot easier. You can still do well. If you turn the boost off, you can still win the game, but you're making it really hard on yourself to do it. So I would say, why not do the placement, help get the skills you need, and that will help you make it a lot easier when you come into your final year and when you come to graduate. And again, I know I'm talking about you leaving university already and you haven't come here, but I think it's important to plan that. So if you go on to the next slide, please. And I thought I'd throw up some of the companies that we work with. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just to give you a few ideas of different organizations that our students have gone on to do placements with. As you can see, there's a good mix of large organizations, as John mentioned, the large organizations, the SMEs, the public sector, like the NHS. They kind of, there's a lot of work there now, as you can imagine, working for the Environment Agency. They're one of our big contacts. Working in the pharmaceutical industry, again, one of the big industries, GSK, Eli Lilly, one of the big law firms, Dominic Levent. Of course, everyone knows about Amazon, Walt Disney, PwC. There's lots of different roles. The smaller, the lesser known, they're not really small, but the lesser known organizations like perhaps your NetApp and people like that are, so there's lots of different opportunities to do placements, different areas you can go into to do placements. And we work very closely with these organizations. Brunel has a very long-standing relationship with these organizations. We've been doing placements for a very long time. And a lot of our graduates are actually working for some of these companies now, and they always like to take on Brunel students. So if you're thinking, I have to go to a particular university to work for a particular organization, absolutely not the case. And Brunel, like I said, we've got a long-standing relationship. I think we've been doing placements since the 60s, 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a long, long time since we've been doing placements. It's one of our key selling points, I would say. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the last slide from me. So, yep, perfect. I'll hand over to George again.
Thanks for that, Mohammed. And yeah, I think you've captured the importance of students doing placement years and how that can make students really competitive in the graduate job market as well. So thank you very much for that. We do have a question come in, but what we'll do is we'll keep that question for the end, towards the end of the session today, and we'll pass over to Sherry, who is currently studying international business, and she will talk about her experience as a Brunel student. So Sherry, over to
Thanks, George. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharina, or Sherry, and as it says, I'm a final year international business student at Brunel. This is actually my 4th year at Brunel. I started in 2017 after I took a gap year, and I can't believe how quickly time has flown. next month is the last month of exams, and then graduation is in July. So I've had a really good experience studying and working at Brunel. I did my placement last year between July 2019 and July 2020. And then obviously COVID happened and we were all working from home. But I did my placement at the university, so I was working at Brunel in the volunteering department. So it was not a role that was specifically related to my degree. So I was working with a lot of charities and non-profit organizations. It was a full-time role, and I was also living on campus, so it was not much of a commute. But I really enjoyed the experience. As Mo said, I think placement is a great way to learn new skills and really gain more experience for your CV. And that's led to so many new opportunities and more experience for me who have undertaken, whether that's a part-time job or summer internships or even virtual internships. I really learned a lot, and I would strongly encourage everyone to at least consider doing a placement, because I mean, I was initially going to do a 3-year degree, but then I saw this opportunity on the careers website, and I thought, let me just try applying and see what the outcome is. And it turned out to be the best year of my life. I mean, I met so many different people from all around the world, and Brunel is one of the most multinational and diverse universities in London. So I was working in a small team, and I got to work alongside the students, even though I was a student myself. And it just led to so many more opportunities for me, and I feel like it really developed my self-confidence and my self-awareness as well, and things that I was good at, things that I wanted to learn more about. I did a lot of training and staff development courses as well, including a CIPD qualification, and also learned a bit of Excel, which was really important in my job role. But other than that, I think a placement's just a great way to discover what you like, what career you want to go into as well. So I was never really considering working at a university. I mean, typically people will go off and work in a company for a year, maybe a multinational company or even a small and medium-sized business. But yeah, I got this opportunity, and it was also paid, so that was really good for me because I could self-fund my university accommodation, so I didn't have to take out a loan. And yeah, overall it was just really fun, and I got the opportunity to work from home as well, so I would definitely recommend it. And it was a fairly straightforward experience, to be honest. I got a lot of support from the PDC, so the Professional Development Centre at Brunel, in terms of helping me with my CV and my cover letter. I also had a placement advisor who would go through interview prep with me before applications, before the interview, and just a lot of support, like regular check-ins with me. And then I was also assigned to complete a 5,000 word placement report, so reflecting on my experience doing a placement at the university and the skills and experience that I developed and gained, and that also contributed towards my overall degree grade. So I think it's something like 11 or 12% of your overall degree contribution. But then again, that didn't seem like as much of a task, because I recently completed my final year dissertation, which was 8,000 words. And I feel like doing a placement really helped me and manage my time, because even though I was working full time, I could still do different courses and gain other skills. I also learned a language whilst working, so Brunel offers language courses, so I did level 1 and level 2 Mandarin, and I was also part of the badminton team, so I would do that on campus. And then other things like joining societies. I was the president of the Hindu Society, so I still got to do that, and then also part of the Vegan and Vegetarian Society. So there is a lot that Brunel offers for all students in all different degree paths, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you're considering a degree in business or international business. I mean, as I said, my degree was initially 3 years, but then I moved to do a sandwich year. So that's what's called a thick sandwich, when you do 2 years and then 1 year placement, and then you come back to your final year, which I started in October. And right now I'm currently applying for graduate level jobs, and having done a placement, I now have so much more to talk about in terms of what I've done in my previous jobs, what I learned through my placement, and often they will ask you to answer some competency-based questions. So tell me about a time when you've had to meet a deadline, or tell me about a time you've worked in a team. So yeah, I think a placement is a great way to develop these skills and really learn a lot more about yourself, and find out if that's something that you want to go into in later on life. So yeah, for me it was a really great experience, and I do cherish it every day. So yeah, hopefully that gave everyone a bit of insight into my placement and what it was like studying international business. But yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask. But thank you.
And thanks so much, Sherry, for giving up your time and contributing and sharing your experience as well. And like Sherry said, if you do have any questions for her, she's a current student, she's living this experience at the moment, and she's in a really great place to answer your questions about the student experience at Brunel in particular. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next speaker. So we thank you very much, Lili, for coming back and supporting us with this event. We really appreciate it. And I'll let you just go ahead and talk about yourself for the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, George. So hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be invited back to speak to you all today. So as George says, I'm Lili. I graduated back in 2018, having studied business and management at the university. After that, I pretty much, before I'd even graduated, secured myself a job as an assistant manager in the hospitality industry, working for a really big hospitality company. And I did that for 1.5 years and really loved it, loved being a manager, but realised that actually I wanted to work back in an office. So I had done the placement that everyone has spoken about today. So I did do that 1-year placement, and I did it in an office setting. It was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, exactly what Cherie said, it was actually probably the best year of my university life. So I decided I wanted another piece to that pie, and managed to secure myself a job as a client experience manager at Barclaycard. So I started that in January 2020, just before the chaos of COVID hit us. And like Cherie, ended up working from home. So I was lucky enough to be in the Northampton head office for 2 months, then shipped off back to my home and worked from there. And in the sort of nearly year that I've been doing that, I've now just taken on a promotion opportunity to work in marketing, which is really fantastic, and still with Barclaycard. So on the side, you know, we've already mentioned, so I started up a small business called Decals and Doodles, which basically I make lots of like vinyl decals, which you can put onto different like wooden like pallets and things. So I've made like a herb planter to go out in my garden, hopefully getting married in July if COVID keeps away for a little while. So lots of different wedding things, and it was something that I just really enjoyed. But exactly what John said, you know, a bit of a side hustle alongside my full-time job. because we were in the middle of lockdown and I had some spare time on my hands, so it made sense to use it and use, you know, my business knowledge and the degree. So how did Brunel help me get here? Well, massively for a start, in lots of different ways. So as I've mentioned, I was a business and management student, so my degree was kind of building the fundamentals of what it is, you know, to work in a business, of what it is like to run a business and manage a business, which has helped me in both my current role, my previous role, and also my own business. So that gave me some really great fundamental knowledge. On top of that, there was also business life sessions, which were run by Dr. Audrey Tang, who was brought in by the university. And that was things like resilience, difficult conversations, and all of the kind of skills that you do need as a manager in business. And I can tell you that that has actually been amazingly helpful, because you come across some difficult situations in work settings, and it's just great to have that kind of knowledge in the background to know how to deal with those, particularly when I was an assistant manager in hospitality, because you do get complaints, and it just helped me overcome some of them really, really challenging situations, which was amazing. On top of this, I absolutely used the PDC, the Professional Development Centre. As I say, I did a placement for a year, so they were there to help me with my CV, with interview prep. There was video interviews, which now in COVID day and age is absolutely normal. But back then, when I was doing placement year, was completely alien. It was so bizarre, but they were so helpful. We got to do practice runs, we did telephone interviews, and you know, that really helped me secure a placement. But I will be honest, I found it so difficult to secure a placement to begin with. I must have gone to over 20 different interviews. And I think, you know, we're talking about building our brand. It is really hard to be told no. And it makes you think, oh gosh, you know, what can I do? And it's so important, you know, take the feedback that you're given, but also speak to, you know, the Professional Development Centre about that feedback. Because one of the most important things that I've learned getting to where I am now is it is so important to be yourself, and be the best version of yourself. So for me, I'm very energetic, very enthusiastic, very chatty. That works for some people, and you know, it's worked for me in the roles that I've been in. But for some of those interviews, you know, they thought I was too much, that I you know, in the team, that maybe I would dominate too much. So they, you know, they just didn't like it. So I always use the analogy now. It's kind of like diamonds. If we look at diamonds, you know, let's say a diamond costs £10,000 and you've got 10 different diamonds. One might be really big, but you know, it's got a lot of what they call inclusions in there. So it's, you know, it's not as clear, and you know, it's not, maybe the color's not quite right. It's a bit, you know, off and yellowy. And then you get diamonds that are absolutely crystal clear, but they might be really tiny. And then you might get one that's medium sized, that's got an absolutely fantastic cut, you know, but it's not the perfect color, but it's also not massive. All of those diamonds are going to be worth the same amount of money because of the things that they bring to the table. It doesn't mean they all have to be the same. So like I say, my brand thing is being really enthusiastic, energetic, and being so driven and problem solving. But that doesn't mean everyone has to be like that. You know, you can be really detailed. So I have a colleague who is fantastic. She is so detailed and she will pick things up. But obviously it takes her a little bit more time to do things than it does me, but her quality of work is amazing. So that's something for you guys to think about. You know, what is it that makes you, you know, what is your unique selling point? What is it that makes you the diamond that company wants to buy? So that's something you need to think about. And again, the Professional Development Centre will be a massive help in helping you find what that is. Because I can tell you, back when I did my placement, I didn't know what that was. So I did my placement year, got to the end of my placement, and that really, really helped me shape the person I was, you know, understanding what it is to work in an office, understanding what it is to work in a team, the different skills that came with doing my placement, and the different opportunities that came up while doing my placement as well. You know, it's been said already, but you know, the network that you build, and the opportunities that you find there is really invaluable. There's also the job shop. So if you can get yourself a part-time job whilst you're studying, fantastic, because again, that's just something else to put on your CV to really show them employers who you are. And the university has amazing societies and clubs. So again, the more you get involved in those, if you find something you like, it just gives you those little selling points. So would I change anything about my experience? No, in a nutshell, I absolutely loved the time that I had at university. I really think it completely set me up for my career and to sort of set me up for success in my career. The only thing I might have done a bit different, I definitely don't think I utilised that innovation hub enough. So if you are a bit entrepreneurial or you think it might be something you're looking at in the future, then definitely do. You know, there's so many different support services at the university. I don't think it's possible for you to use them all, but absolutely do try, because they're all there for a reason and they are fantastic. So my key advice, just to sort of finish off here, I would definitely say, you know, push yourself, do think about your brand, but don't put yourself under too much pressure to know it straight away. As you know, as we said, you're just going into university, we're already trying to talk to you about what happens when you leave. But while you're there, you know, start to think about what it is that you're good at, what it is that people give you good feedback on, but also think about the things that you get the feedback where it's a bit more constructive, you know, things that you could do better, and take it all on board, because university is the best time to kind of really find yourself, which sounds a bit cliche, but it really is true. So utilize the services that are there, utilize the support that's there, and really just make the most of all the opportunities. Because I, like Sherry, wasn't going to do a placement year because I thought 3 years of my life is plenty. Like, I just want to get out there and start earning. And it just whizzed by. And I'm so glad I did that placement year, because it made such a difference. And if I could have done 1,000 more years, I would have done. You know, I'm always thinking of ways to go back. So it's, like I say, it's great to be here today. So yeah, so definitely take every opportunity and just constantly be evaluating yourself, but also be kind to yourself, because I think you can go too far and put so much pressure on yourself that it causes you stress that doesn't need to be there. And the services for that as well, they've got all the counselling services and everything at the university, which is fantastic. But do speak to the PDC, because they'll be the best people. They're going to be your champions, and they're going to want to help make you the best that you can be. So that's it from me, George, and back over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lili, for coming back and talking about your experience. And I can feel your energy and enthusiasm through the laptop, and it's really nice to hear. And it sounds like Brunel supported you very well, but also your resilience, resourcefulness, and hard work has allowed you to have a fantastic career already. Only graduating a few years ago, so that's brilliant. Okay, so great. We do have a little bit of time for questions now, and we have had some questions come through, and it does look like we'll start off with the earliest one. It looks like a few of these are directed at the moment to John and Mohammed. So John, if I start with you with this one, this is about students who are coming for a master's or like a postgraduate course. If a student has completed a course at another university and they're coming to do a master's at Brunel, is there support to get those students into some good graduate jobs after from the Professional Development Centre?
Yeah, a great question. And I think that goes back to on my slide I said about the value of a UK qualification, and I think that makes a really, really big difference. So you've got a qualification overseas, and then you've got a UK qualification on top of that. Yes, we do help you look for a job, and you should be in a very similar category. If you're considered an international student, there is the new post-study work visa, which was paused for about 5 or 6 years, which we were all really, really missing, but it has been brought back this year. So that means that students that study here in the UK, either undergraduate or postgraduate, are able to apply for jobs and work for 2 years after graduation, which opens up so many more doors in terms of opportunities. So yes, You'd come and use all our facilities. We'd help you through the recruitment process. We can signpost you to job adverts, definitely. And I think if you've studied probably outside of the UK and you've been with us just for a year, we can just give you a bit, in terms of some pointers about some of the sort of job roles that may be different in where you studied before, that might be different here in the UK as well. So yes, that's exactly the sort of thing we can help with. And if you're a student on that first couple of weeks, I'd say book and see one of our careers team, and they could get the ball rolling as well, and start kind of setting off a good kind of projection in terms of how you take things forward.
Great, thank you. And just to add to that question, because we seem to have a related question as well, would there be assistance from Brunel to find a placement opportunity related to their sector as well, if they're like a master's student? Does that happen at all?
Yeah, so and Mo's our resident placement expert as well. So you have the two of us. We can do a pincer movement on this. So for postgraduates, actually we've opened up a lot of our postgraduate courses to placements. So more and more of our postgraduate qualifications, you are able to do it with placement. And that's very, very similar. So there's an application process, there's a timeline to follow, whether you start in September or if you start a little bit later in January. And we've got a dedicated placement advisor that supports postgraduate students within that as well. So yeah, we'll be able to support that. And I think for that particular student on the call, it's something to consider is, do you do a postgraduate with placement, or do you take advantage of the post-study work visa? And basically you have a bit more choice now. You can do both, I believe as well, but that just gives a bit more choice. So it might be, for example, you do spread the risk a little bit, and you both apply for full-time permanent jobs, take advantage of that postgraduate study visa, and also at the same time you apply for placements as well, and that gives you the choice. But it's really nice because you do have the choice now as well.
Great, thank you. And Mohammed, we got two questions for you. So one about legal placements. Do people do legal placements or placements at law firms? So is that?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Well, both really. You can do a placement at a law firm, depending on what you're doing. We've got, because almost every organization has, or every law firm for that matter, has an IT department, has a finance department, so you could find those type of placements at these organizations, or you could do a legal placement as well at a law firm. But again, remember, it's an entry-level position, so you'll be starting in an entry-level position. So things like paralegals, things like that is what you're looking at.
Great. And following on, I think this is from the same student. So do international students utilize placements, and would their immigration status pose a bar from undertaking a placement at an organization?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. The international students can take up the placement option. That's absolutely fine. Their immigration status will not provide any sort of hindrance to them undertaking the placement, as long as you're registered on the 4-year course at Brunel University. Even though you might have a student visa, because the placement is an academic part of your course, you can work full-time during your placement as long as it's an accredited part. An accredited placement by Brunel University. That shouldn't pose any sort of problem for the students.
Okay. Thank you. We have another question here. This could be open to probably Mohammed and John. What kind of fields or careers can a student get into if they study a bachelor's economics and accounting? So what is the typical, or what can they do? Lots of different things?
Yeah, there's lots of different things. So my internet connection has been a bit funny, so do bear with me if I go into a slight tunnel, if you like. So BSc Economics, obviously there's a whole range of different things you can go into, and that, I think, do remember that majority of graduate opportunities are open to students from any degree discipline. So if you really love economics and you think, actually, I'd love to put that into great practice, things like the Bank of England have graduate opportunities. Lots of large financial organisations, medium-sized financial organisations need the skill set that's required to do economics. Also, to be an analyst, you'll be very numerate, and analytical skills are required across the financial sector, and they're in very, very high demand as well. So there'll be a really, really good range. But you might decide to do something completely different. You might just say, actually, do you know what? I'll be a teacher, or I'll do something completely different as well from that particular field. But it does provide a whole range of different kind of opportunities that you can kind of go on to. One thing, if you want to find out, so for example, if you apply to different universities, LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, has an alumni tool. And actually you can go on LinkedIn and you can put in the university and also the subject area, and you can see where all students from that university, from that subject area, are working now. So if you wanted to get a real flavour for the range of different places people work from, you can definitely do that as well.
Great, that's a great tip as well. So thank you very much for sharing. We also have a couple of questions for Sherry. So, Sherry, a question for you. Going into the world of employment can be daunting. What support did you receive to help you from your transition from student to working?
Yeah, I think because I did a gap year, I was used to working full time. And then I started studying in 2017 when a lot of my friends were already in their second years. So I think that the transition was not as bad for me, but I had a lot of familiarity because I was working at Brunel, that I was, I knew who I'd be working with, I knew where the office was, I knew the exact start date and stuff like that. But I think in terms of the support, I was in regular contact with my placement advisor, and I just really read up about the job role and what I would be doing. I think I did a lot of research independently, but it is a daunting experience, definitely, and there's a lot more required from you if you're working full time, especially because you're representing the company that you work for, and I was representing Brunel. So I think the support I received was definitely from the PDC and then also from my line manager and personal tutor as well. Any queries or any trouble I was facing, there was always someone that I could speak to about my concerns. And they were all very understanding and really supportive. Hope that helps.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for answering that question. And a question for you, Lily. Could I ask you whether a placement helped you with your interview skills? Did it prepare you better doing that placement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your placement interview skills, it's all practice. So, I think as well when it comes to graduating, you're already prepared because you've done it once to get a placement. I also think it really helps because that placement does give you that opportunity to understand what it is you like to do and the sort of field. So even though, my graduate role was in hospitality and as an assistant manager, and I've changed that now, it gave me the opportunity, I got that job really quickly, like I say, before I'd even graduated. So I actually started before I'd graduated, and it gave me that opportunity. I got it really quick, but then I was really confident to move on and try something different. And again, I secured my second job really quickly, and I 100% put that down to the fact that I'd done all the practice runs with my placement. Like I say, I hadn't been as successful in my placement interviews, and it's because you get all the practice there and you don't forget. Once you've done it all and you've got all the feedback, you don't forget. So absolutely, yeah, definitely because of my placement.
Great. I'm glad that placement opportunity prepared you and helped you move forward as well. So that's brilliant. Okay, so thank you so much. So we've come to the end of our panel discussion today, and I just want to say a big thank you to all the panelists for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, and your just general life experience as well, and advice. So that is really useful, and I hope all the students who have tuned in today have taken some key pointers away as well. Just to round up today's webinar, just a few things from me. We do have a feedback survey that we'd really appreciate if you could fill out after this session, just to let us know what went well, what could be improved. And there's also a chance to win an Amazon voucher as well if you do kind of fill that out. Just to let you know as well, next week we have some sessions just like this for study skills and STEM skills. So that will be taking place on Tuesday, the 27th of April. But we'll also have another Careers in Your Futures kind of panel like this as well, focused on law, and that'll be on Thursday, the 29th of April as well. So, and I've just had a message to say that the survey will be sent tomorrow. So please, when you see that in your inboxes, please complete that then. And once again, thank you very much to our panelists for sharing your experience and the knowledge. If you do have any other questions or would like to reach out, then you can book onto our open day as well. And there's also, I think, that's on our website, so brunel.ac.uk as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. And that is all from us this evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.